Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Sony Duo 13 and its predecessor, the Sony Duo 11. So of course I've got the 13.3-inch 13 on the left and the 11.6-inch 11 on the right. And the sheet battery is attached to the Duo 11. I have that intentionally attached for the purposes of this review because with the sheet battery, the 11 does share the same battery life with the brand new 13. So clearly design is different, even though they both have a slanted design, especially the 11 with the sheet battery, which is supposed to be ergonomic, at least of some sort, in terms of giving you a better viewing angle. Both do have fixed screens when they're in the convertible position, as well as, of course, in tablet mode, as you see them right now. Both full HD displays, different in that the 13 has Sony's triluminous display technology, whereas the older 11 only was a traditional IPS display. But in my use, I have found that the older Duo 11 does have a brighter display, in my opinion, a stronger display with better viewing angles overall. However, it does suffer from a burn-in issue, which is associated with refresh rate. Whether or not that will end up being a problem with the Duo 13 is something I really can't predict at this juncture, but it is something I've seen over time with my Duo 11. So with that said, let me power both of these up so you can immediately see the difference in screen quality out of the gate. I think you're just going to notice the colors are a little bit different. In fact, it looks like the brightness has dimmed on the 13, which it shouldn't have. Let me go ahead and see if I can fix that right now. Go into the desktop. In fact, I'll just close that out. Let me just go ahead and go right into the hard buttons for brightness control and see, no, brightness is all the way up. So again, that's a perfect example of me mentioning, as I just did before, that screen brightness is clearly stronger on the original Duo 11. Why exactly, I can't really tell you, other than that there is a, I won't say a stark difference, but there is something to be said for the difference in display brightness. Now, the home button's clearly different on these units. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Internet Explorer in the tablet mode, of course, of Windows 8, and I'm going to bring up a website. Before I do that, again, you'll notice just the difference in the white balance on the whites here versus the Duo 11 when compared with the 13. So clearly there is a difference in the display. There's no question about it. I'm not sure exactly how well it'll translate in this video, but there should be a clear difference. I would say the whites are truer on the Duo 11, the predecessor. Its successor, the Duo 13, the whites are a little bit darker, not quite as accurate in my opinion, even though this does support a wider color gamut. Go figure. With that said, let's go ahead and pull up a website. Let's go to CNN. Do a couple tests here. And go ahead and just bring that up. Different wireless chipsets here. On the right, we have an Intel-based one. On the left, we have Broadcom. As you may have noticed, the Duo 13 was a little bit faster, and quite frankly, it should be. It's got the later hardware, which is latest in terms of what's available in the marketplace with Haswell, as well as faster memory, slightly faster than what's found in the Duo 11. Again, you might notice that there's a difference in the screen brightness. Overall quality, I'm going to go ahead and bring up some text. Both of these are full HD, so they do have the same resolution. But again, I think you're going to instantly see what I'm talking about in terms of that things just look brighter on the Duo 11. This has nothing to do with viewing angle, by the way, for those of you who might be speculating that it does. This is really just a matter of a different display for a different machine. And you can see that right there as I lift it up, no viewing angle issue. If I go ahead and lift up the 13, you'll see the 13 actually has more viewing angle issues than the 11. No question about that in my actual experience with these two machines. Let me go ahead and bring up another website. Let's try ESPN, even though I don't really want to lament anything to do with my Giants. Again, this will give you an idea of load time, pretty much right on par with each other. And that's why I feel this comparison is relevant and important to people that are shopping the 13 right now, because there are some deals on the 11, and I think it makes it far more attractive when it's actually compared one for one, which is how it should be, of course, unless you need the larger screen of the 13.3-inch Duo, as well as the larger keyboard, which not everyone will need, but certainly it does have its merits when it comes to productivity. Again, pinch to zoom, really solid on both of these machines. Obviously, a little bit more ideal with the larger screen you're going to find on the 13, but again, it's all a matter of personal preference. But you can see In terms of the actual performance, they're both in line with one another. It's really the only thing I can continue to reiterate is that I do see a difference in the actual screen quality, which I think will come through in this video. Things are just a little bit better on the 11 if you can overlook the burn-in, as I keep mentioning. Let me go ahead and jump back. It's mentioning flip ahead for those of you that don't know about it. Not going to get into that right now, but I'll take us back to the home screen. And that button is a little bit easier to press on the original Duo 11. Now, I want to go around the actual machine, show you some differences. Now, on the Duo 11, let me go ahead and move the 13 out of the way here. Or actually, you know what? I'll start with the 13. Why not? On the 13, as I've mentioned, in my other coverage, a lot less bezel here than what we've got with the 11. And you can see the 11 in the background, just considerably more bezel going on than what the 13 has to offer. Part of the way that Sony's redesigned this, beyond just the start button being new and improved, is that we also now have all of our ports at the back of the machine. So the left side, we've got a power button, which you can see right there at the top left. And then on the back side, everything is back here now. So the Duo 11, which I'm going to show you in a moment, had all of its ports basically wrapped around the body. Power port was on the back side, but not as much clear importance placed on putting all of the ports at the back like here on the Duo 13. Now, for some of you, this is going to be perfectly fine. You're going to be happy that everything is in the same place. Others are going to be, quite frankly, put off by the fact that the charging light is at the back to the right there of the DC port for the charging. And that means that you have no activity lights whatsoever on the front end of this machine. And that, to me, is a design cue that Sony shouldn't have given up from the 11. But I'm not really so turned off, though, by all of the rear ports here. It's not a big deal. The NFC point is pretty much in the same or similar area as what's found on the 11 right there at the back. We've got some rubber feet, a lot of ventilation, the cameras here on the left side, and our volume and assist controls down there at the left along the speaker grill. So that pretty much rounds out the actual design. On the right side of the machine, as it hopefully comes into focus, we've got the actual pen holder as well as palette, which is another design cue that's missing from the original 11. Nowhere to stow the pen, which was quite frankly ridiculous. So important that Sony took care of that. As far as being make or break for the experience, not quite as critical as it may sound, but it was something that I think most users were put off by, because if you're spending 16, 17, or even 2,000 on a machine, it should accommodate those needs. Again, performance is almost identical, so I can't really give the brand new 13-inch any extraordinary credit when it comes to overall performance. You can see on the 11, we've got the original Duo here, which does have a VGA or composite output right there, which for business users wanting to connect to a projector is critical. Sony does include an adapter for the HDMI port with the new Duo 13, but it's something I wanted to point out. We've also got our micro SD card slot full-size SD card slot, as well as memory stick slot right there on the left side, something again that is now on the back of the Duo 13, and that's right next to the headphone jack. So this is far more of a traditional layout than what's found on the 13-inch, and I do prefer it in just about every way. You can see we've got our activity lights right here at the front of the machine, so you don't have to wonder whether or not you're fully charged. You don't have to go to the back of the machine. Everything is where it should be, at least when it comes to activity lights and notifications. Volume control, as well as a screen orientation lock and assist button, also where they belong in my opinion. You may have noticed on the Duo 13, this entire area now across the entire bezel on the bottom side is a speaker, whereas on the 11 we just have two floating speakers on either edge of the machine. As I flip it around to the right hand side, you will see we've got another array of ports. Let me bring it from this angle, which again are relocated to the back of the Duo 13. So we've got our two USB ports, the exact same array that you've got with the 13, our HDMI output, and then our power button are all here. I do also prefer the older power button. Believe it or not, it's just a regular button, whereas the other one really does remind me of tablets. It does lend itself to a sleeker, thinner build, whereas this is far more of an industrial design in my opinion, and maybe that's part of the reason much of it was scrapped, and they've turned it into a much more commercially friendly and viable product. You can see I've got the pen tucked into the extended battery sheet right there. Again, this battery sheet is something you don't need in order to accommodate the 10 hours of battery life. So that's another thing that should be pointed out. In terms of camera location, you can see here it was kind of slopped in among the ventilation, whereas on the 13, they clearly found a better location, in my opinion, than what was available here with the Duo 11. But these are really minor critiques for two really solid machines. Also, the Gorilla Glass on here seems to be a little bit more solid than the glass on the new 13. Not sure if that is Gorilla Glass or not, or if they've switched to one of Corning's newer, latest, and greatest pieces of glass for this, but it just seems to be a little bit less in terms of quality of build, just about in every way, than the original Duo 11. So that could just be improving margins, whatever it is. The 13, definitely, in my opinion, a better machine in just about every way because the design cues overall are better. My biggest, again, gripe with this machine is really about all of the ports being relocated and, of course, having no notification lights, no activity lights that are within actual any visual line of sight. So as a result, you're always going to be picking this machine up and looking, or poking your head, peering your head back behind it to make sure you're done charging, or of course powering it up, bringing up the backlight in order to then go to your desktop and check, which to me is a little bit crazy. But overall, really like this machine a lot, and when compared with the original Duo 11, I think it does stand up to everything that we have come to expect from the original breed. I could have done, as I've mentioned, without some of these new design cues, but overall, two really great machines. I would love to see Sony keep the 11-inch model alive, but because they are launching things like the Tab 11, which is clearly more targeted at Microsoft Surface Pro, of course the new generation that will be coming out soon, whereas the Duo 11 originally found itself somewhere awkwardly in between just about everything, or really defining the market in many ways, because when this launched last year, it was clearly a Surface Pro killer as long as you could live with the fixed angle screen. Now, the Tab 11 really picks up where the Duo 11 left off, and that's where I think all of the emphasis got shifted to the far more, or I should say a broader audience-friendly Duo 13, because there are many people, as I've mentioned, that really were put off by the actual size of this display rather than its performance or anything else. But overall, a great performer on both sides. Again, favor does go towards the screen on the 11.6, but for some of you, it won't matter that this is a brighter display because, quite frankly, you won't work with anything smaller than the very much standard or very popular display size of 13.3 for business and just about everything else, whether you're looking at a MacBook Air, another convertible, or anything that is really about productivity and not just play. I also want to point out Sony has changed the way that these machines open and close. A little bit easier now with this machine. Not a tremendous difference in actual design on the back end, but they've definitely cleaned things up. There's more ventilation. So again, just learning from what they've done in the past. The range of motion is not any new record. It still works the same way. You could try to leave it in different positions, but it's always going to kind of just pop back into the position it belongs in, which is either tablet or that fixed position, which, by the way, if you're using this in bed or on a couch, which may seem odd, the viewing angles from below are terrible when compared to the original Duo 11, which pretty much keeps its viewing angles at all levels. I'll go ahead and open this one up, and you'll see there's a really big design difference. Here we've got the plate basically going across the entire body rather than floating in the center. The ribbon cables that connect the display to the actual system, a little bit more visible, but in my opinion, these are very small design cue differences, and again, more ventilation than the single ventilation that you might see right there blurred off in the background. There's just a lot more ventilation going on the brand new machine, which probably accounts for why the new machine is substantially quieter than the original Duo 11. Not so much so that it's a game breaker, though. Again, look at this keyboard, the optical trackpad there, if you want to call it that, which some people can deal with, others cannot. I'll go ahead and close this back up. Again, it does hook on the sides the same way on the brand new Duo 13, but just so you can see that keyboard again, much larger, and the optical trackpad is gone in favor of a true trackpad, even though it is a shrunken down one at that. Backlighting seems about the same. A little bit more stickers and marketing on the newer 13, but again, I think that has more to do with capitalizing on the popularity of this machine and overall success that Sony's found in the convertible market. But overall, really like both, clearly. If I had to pick one, I would still stick with the 11, believe it or not. And I think that makes it a pretty good buy in the marketplace presently, especially if you are looking for a value. The 11 is definitely going to deliver in a bigger way since these are being clearanced out now to a degree. And you can find them a little over $1,000, I believe, depending on the configuration, whereas with the 13, you're still looking at a retail entry point, I believe, of $1,400 for the i5, and then, of course, $1,900 for this upgrade on RAM, as well as hard drive space, and, of course, processor up to the i7. Haswell versus Ivy Bridge, well, it's all about battery life. Graphics performance, here you're dealing with an Intel HD 4400, here a 4000. So they're really close, not exactly identical. Again, everything is pretty much going to benchmark a little bit in favor of the 13, but they're close enough that I think anyone who can live with the 11-inch form factor should be giving this a very strong consideration if they are about to pick up the 13, especially since the sheet battery does bring them up to equivalent battery life. If there are any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.